Yo, what is going on, everybody? It's Brave Cat here once again with another Frontier Signals update. So there's not really a whole lot to run through today, so at the end I've got a couple of extras to show. But taking a look at the space weather we've had, things are once again pretty quiet, although that is again going to change very quickly once this coronal hole stream starts to meet Earth. And I would expect that to start happening in a couple days from now. You know, this thing isn't quite directly facing us, but it seems like it is close enough to the central region where I think we would expect 2 days from now when it to start. And it could be a pretty enhanced and, you know, an event with quite a bit of longevity to it, considering how big this coronal hole is. It could be in this thing for a couple of days once it starts. And it just seems to be getting bigger and bigger as it comes more into the Earth-facing side. So definitely to watch out for that. And in conjunction with that, there is potential for the sunspot region here that will be just right behind it to potentially flare off. So depending on if it does, and if it did so at the right time, we could see a bit of a 1-2 punch and exasperating the solar storm coming from this. So again, we are most likely going to see some earthquake activity following this as well. So looking at the farside sunspot imagery, it looks like the region that was over here that was looking pretty dense, pretty dark, has potentially decayed. So that's at least a good sign. But we'll have to see what that actually looks like when it does come to face us, because, you know, sometimes this helioseismic imagery isn't fully reliable because, you know, it has to do with seeing, basically detecting sound waves all the way through the sun. So sometimes something pops out that wasn't really detected, or vice versa. So that's what we got pretty much going on there. And taking a look at the earthquakes right now, so again, the tremor map over on the Pacific Northwest seismic network is looking pretty dry, not really much going on here. But when we take a look at Earthquake 3D, with the USGS feeds in particular, we can see the tremor activity has actually pretty much skyrocketed, especially resulting from that 5.6 that struck over here in Nevada. There's a ton of tremors and aftershocks coming from that event, as well as the tremors over here in San Francisco on the uptick, as well as numerous 2s and 3s striking all the way down. So yeah, it looks like things are not slowing down over here. And oh my gosh, really? Alright, sorry about that. There's just a little bit of chaos going on in the background. But yeah, other than this, there hasn't really been too much. There's been a deep event over here by Russia, so a little bit further north than we would expect. Some deep events over here. And, you know, the regular stuff going on over here by Fiji. And over here in Europe, things are, I suppose, business as usual. We've got, you know, some things happening in Greece, not too much happening over here in Italy, at least not near the volcanic areas. But, you know, there's still 4s just kind of peppering in here, kind of, you know, going into the Middle East. But yeah, I think, you know, the West Coast is really kind of the main focus, really going into the whole rest of the year. You know, this isn't really going to go away, I don't think. And the developments that we're seeing, well, they are developing. So definitely something to keep an eye on as we move forward. But other than that here, we've got a couple other things to go through. So over on X, just want to, I guess, mention all of the different warehouse fires that have been going on. You know, there's been a couple in particular that have been going pretty viral, such as, you know, that disgruntled worker setting fire to a toilet paper warehouse. But there has been at least 10 warehouse fires just in the last week, and others that have been happening over the previous months. So we'll just kind of go through some of these posts a little bit out of order here. So there's one over here in Queens. Not sure what kind of warehouse this was. There was, California seems to kind of have most of them here. So after that disgruntled worker burned down the warehouse of toilet paper, somebody tried setting fire to a mall shop while people were in there shopping. Just, a little bit over dramatic, I think some people are. But then again, the world we live in right now is quite literally a fire in a madhouse. So this is basically just a reflection of where society is at. So there was a 1 million square foot warehouse in Ontario. We've got, okay, now this one's interesting. I don't know how much of this one's actually being talked about. Apparently right after the Justice Department launched an investigation into short sellers, all of a sudden the largest document storage facility just kind of miraculously burned down. This one probably deserves more attention than some of these other ones. We've got a massive fire at a warehouse with plastic products over here in Chile. Very, very black smoke, all sorts of nasty chemicals coming out of there. This was the one with the disgruntled worker setting fire to the warehouse. There's, there's many different clips of that. It's pretty crazy how that happened, and, the destruction of the warehouse, pretty much resulted in it being completely leveled, having absolutely nothing left. But there's been a lot of these. There's been a tremendous amount of these, so the amount of unrest and, well, I guess shenanigans, for lack of a better term, going on right now is pretty crazy over in Clown World. So, just be safe. If anything's going on in your area, your town, your neck of the woods, well, just, again, be safe and, try to get through the trials and tribulations that we're going through. It is pure chaos, and I think it's kind of like that by design, a little bit on purpose. The times that we're living in right now are definitely unprecedented, and this is indeed the cosmic Super Bowl, if you know what I'm talking about. So to close things off here, I'm going to have a few images of Comet Panstarrs, and with that, I'll wrap things up. So hope you all enjoyed, got something out of it. Please like and subscribe for more. Share this video if you dare, and as always, I'll catch you all in the next.